Hello, everyone. Welcome to another forecast. I'm Dr. Claire Moon of Aligning Light Astrology, and we're going to be talking about May today, and it's May 1st today. So, I really wish I kind of missed my opportunity. I think I did start this 3 years ago. I think this is the 3-year anniversary of this forecast, actually. I just realized that because I remember in my first forecast, it was for May. And my thumbnail was of Justin Timberlake saying it's going to be May, right? Which my partner made a very good point today that really we should be saying this actually on April 30th, not on May. It's going to be May. So hi, it's May, and we're going to talk about May starting today. Um, if you are joining me live, there is a chat to the right-hand side of your screen. Please feel free to say hello. Oh, hello, Timothy. Hoot hoot. Welcome. Good to see you again. And feel free to ask questions in there, share whatever you want to share, whatever you feel like sharing. I'm better at it. I'm better at keeping up with the chat during the Q&A, which I have once a month, which I'll talk about later. Well, I'll talk about it right now because I usually do these every 2 weeks. And then I have a question and response session the second Thursday of every month, which is for May on the 9th. So let me get my notes up here. Oh, hello, Reverend Kai. Welcome. Hello. Yeah, happy May Day. Let's see. Don't need that. I'm a little slow today, everyone, just so you know. Hello, Ardquark. Welcome back. I'll get into kind of my personal-ish stuff later, but just I am slow today, and you're gonna tell, probably be able to tell. So I'm just gonna take my time and go with that. Mercury is direct right now, but they themselves are a little bit slow. So even once Mercury stations direct, we still usually have to wait for some time for all the cylinders to start firing again and going in the forward direction. Yeah, I feel like I have 2 brain cells today, maybe 3. So that's what we're running on today. I'm trying to think if I have any other announcements before I put the chart up on the screen. Um, I'm doing my, oh yeah, I do. I'm doing my consults as usual. Books are open. I'm also running a workshop. I've done workshops before, but usually with a co-conspirator. This time I'm actually doing one all by myself. So this is going to be on May 17th. I'm having a live workshop at 5:30 p.m. Central Time. So I know if you're in Europe, that's a little late and not accessible, but there will be a recording of it afterward if you want to purchase it and just watch it later. But it's on Jupiter and Gemini. So if you want to learn about Jupiter and Gemini, who will be in a square with Saturn and Pisces. Right now, we've got a sextile. That relationship between Jupiter and Saturn is about to shift. That's what I want to talk about in the workshop and really break down what we can expect from Jupiter while they spend a year in Gemini. So I'm going to go through a lot of rising sign examples, based on, whatever people bring most thoroughly. I don't know if I'll go through well, maybe I'll go through all 12 of the rising signs, but we'll go through that. We'll workshop it together live as a small group. So that's my hope. That's what I envision. Again, it's on May 17th. And if you can't make it live, if that time does not work for you, like I said, there's going to be a recording that'll be available for purchase sometime later. So when I have to figure out the technology of how to do that. So I know I have to get Podia and do some stuff, but keep your eyes out for that. That's kind of my big up and coming thing. Yeah, other than that, everything else is the same. So let me get our clock up here and we can get going. The dates of interest that we have for the first, well, especially for the first 2 weeks, there's a bit more going on the second half of the month, but we've got Pluto stationing retrograde tomorrow. They're in the process of stationing right now. We have a Taurus new moon on the 7th. We have Mercury entering Taurus on the 15th. Jupiter and the Sun are conjoining on the 18th of May. Jupiter Cazimi on the 18th. Sun enters Gemini on the 20th. Venus entering Gemini on the 23rd, same day that we have a Sagittarius full moon on the 23rd, and then Jupiter entering Gemini finally on the 25th. And that's why I'm trying to get this workshop out before Jupiter gets into Gemini. So that is what's going on for May. Before we get into that, I want to, oh, and on that note, Jupiter and Uranus conjunction that is happening right now. The Astrology podcast just did a really good episode with Richard Tarnas talking about the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that's happening right now. Go check it out. It's super relevant to our interests. So really good listen. I was just listening to that. Yeah, I've got some reflection points. Talk about the past a little bit, talk about what we just got out of in terms of Pisces stuff that is now largely over in terms of Mars being there. So we'll talk about that, but let me check in on this chat and see what's going on. Hello, Sam. Welcome. Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah. Not sure if I've heard of Sedna, but she is going up. She's gonna be there 40 years. Sedna, I'll have to look that up. I am not familiar. That word is familiar, but I don't know what it is. So I'll have to check that out. I like, I know I'm more of a Hellenistic girly and all that. And that's my foundation, but like y'all know I mess with asteroids and Lord knows whatever people put in front of me. This week I've been meaning to learn primary directions for a long time, and I finally it just came up in my face. Like I didn't mean to learn it. It just like I needed to in a moment, and now it's like here, and I've been using it the last few days poorly. Like I don't have it dialed in, but I've just been using kind of some rough estimates on things, and man. So yeah, I'm always learning. So I gotta look up Sedna. Hello, Atlas. Welcome. Hi. All right. Oh yeah, and so the workshop, yeah. If you are, especially if you're, I guess I didn't even think about that, Sam. Thank you for bringing that up. I mean, of course, it comes up when we're thinking about how these transits are falling in a chart per rising sign. But yeah, I suppose especially if you are, a Gemini rising, it's a big deal. Your first house is your mind, body, spirit, general circumstances. And general circumstances is super vague, but I do see it. I see it show up like that. It's like when stuff is going through the first house or, just natal configurations in the first. It's like, yeah, these things just come up kind of everywhere. Like it's ubiquitous in my life. All right. Anyway, let's get to it. Let's talk about some reflection stuff. Um, and I have to keep myself on time because I don't have anything after this. And so I could just go on and on forever. But I don't have very much orange juice left. So my fuel will run out. I'll probably have to take a break at some time today. So let me get my notes up here. So the first, it's today. And we've got Pluto stationing. They are about to go retrograde. So we can see the way my software shows this is, and you can set your software to have planets begin to station within a certain amount of time that you can choose. So like, it's a bit arbitrary, but essentially when I see a planet slowing down by degree, it's no longer moving any degrees or arc minutes, then I know it's in the stationing phase. And depending on how you want to define stationing, hell, we could make that wider. But in any event, Pluto is stationing. If you're a more modern contemporary astrologer, I think they probably have more symbolism around outer planet retrograde than I do. However, and the reason why I don't pay attention to it that much, the retrogrades as a whole with outer planets like Neptune, Pluto, Uranus, and sorry if you've heard me say this, I know you know this if you fuck with me, but if these planets are retrograde for like 4 or 5 months at a time every year. And so for me, what I am really focused on are the stations and stationing points. And this can come from a few different places, but when planets station, just that planet's significations becoming more pronounced, more vivid, more apparent, louder. So with Pluto and looking, this will come up in the house topics where Aquarius is for you. So that's where you'll want to look in your own chart. P.S. Oh, I should have done my caveat. I'm gonna say this like every time now, but the best way to use this information today, if you can pull up your own birth chart and find the rising sign. So if you don't know your birth time, I'm sorry, this is going to be more difficult. But if you do know your birth time, you can plop it into AstroSeek, AstroDeans, Channy Nicholas's app. All of those will help you to get your birth chart up. And then we got to look at the house topics, wherever planets are. They're going to be doing their stuff in the life topics described by the houses. So for instance, this Leo rising person, this Pluto stuff is going on in their seventh house of partners, partnerships, business partners, marriage partners, also clients, one-on-one business associates, contractual things, and open adversaries, which is very interesting. Open enemies. Anyway, I digress. Pluto is stationing. So what Pluto things might become a little bit louder, that would be big changes that maybe you've already been noticing with Pluto having been kind of in and out of this area of Aquarius for the last year. So think about that. If you've had changes with the house topics where in Aquarius, where Pluto has been starting to hang out a little bit more, this might be a loud point about that. And so think, and even if maybe it feels like nothing's going on, I would say Pluto stations are a good time to journal and to just write some things down that are going on so you can look back and see if there's anything that comes up. But Pluto can be things that are transformative, of course. It's also power dynamics, feelings of empowerment versus feelings of empowerment in events going on around you. So I look at this chart, of course, as our internal world, also externally speaking. So what's going on around you externally, and especially in the seventh, this is like other people too. Maybe it's the other person in your life, your partner that's dealing with power dynamic issues in their life or issues of empowerment or disempowerment. Pluto can hide things, can obscure, corrupt thing, or I guess those are different. It can hide and obscure things. It can also corrupt and distort things, I think. Wherever Pluto moves over, it kind of reminds me of how it feels like a bit of a gravity well of, I don't know, themes and archetypes, but this is such a nerdy analogy. It's like too niche, but I'm going to use it anyway because I like it. So if you have a wine glass, this is talking about distortion, but it's a fun way to visualize it if you're a visual person. I know some people out there have like aphantasia and they can't, they're not as good maybe at making vivid imagery in the mind. But this imagery was taught to me in terms of trying to understand the gravitational effects of a black hole. So what you do is, and I think it's Bill Nye, it's probably from Bill Nye. You put a wine glass up and you look through the bottom of it, like the base of a wine glass, you like pick it up and look through the bottom of it. And the way that distorts light is a lot like, in that conical way is a lot like, a black hole. But that's what I also feel like Pluto does as they move around. It's like moving that base of a wine glass around and it just kind of distorts the light of whatever it's moving around. And in that way, I think it can kind of, have us looking at things in a way different perspective, which is cool. Having us understand things in a way new way, even if it like really distorts our lives or like makes things difficult for a while. But it can make us see things in a new way, I think, insofar as it just refracts light in such a way, just metaphorically speaking. There's that. It can corrupt and mutate things. So for better or for worse, some mutations are really cool. That was one of the things I was mentioning with Capricorn and Aquarius a long time ago, was like a year ago, was how it's like with the symbolism of these two places, they're both Saturn. In Capricorn, we're more building on the things that are already there, like over time, over evolution, over eons, we're building on things genetically speaking. That's how evolution works. But then part of evolution is also random genetic mutations, and especially ones that stick. and for better or for worse, and that is Aquarius. And that's kind of what Pluto's doing here as well. So it's like all of these themes of changing and transforming and all of that might be really loud right now. So look around you, especially in your Aquarius areas. Maybe it's tying into the Capricorn house topics too, just because we're dealing with this kind of retrograde situation. So here are some dates on that. So they're stationing technically, I guess, on the 2nd of May. They enter Capricorn. They're going to go backwards then, and they're going to re-enter Capricorn on September 1st of 2024. They're going to station direct on October 11th of 2024 at 29 degrees Capricorn. Let me actually just, we can look. Yeah, so they'll station here. We can see October 11th at 29 degrees, 38 minutes of Capricorn on October 11th. And then they will finally re-enter back into Aquarius on November 19th. So this fall is really going to be the last tying up of loose ends of Pluto things in Capricorn. So any final, it's like whatever changes and transformations, obscurations or revealings or uncoverings of things. It goes both ways. Any corruptions, mutations, changes for better or for worse. I can also think very much, it's like people talk about the phoenix rising from the ashes. It's also kind of like a caterpillar coming out of its cocoon and becoming a butterfly. That whole cocooning process and whole life cycle as a butterfly, that's got Pluto written all over it, right? I'm sure I cannot be the first astrologer to make that comparison. But anyway, whatever kind of caterpillar butterfly process we've been going through, even as harrowing as it might have been in Capricorn, there might be some loose ends to tie up with those things this fall, this autumn in 2024. Yeah, I think that's all I need to say about that. But right now, just the thing to be doing is just noticing. I don't think there's anything to do, but that's going on with Pluto right now. And of course, if you are a fixed sign, if you're a Leo rising, Scorpio, Aquarius, Taurus rising, if you've got luminaries or other planets that are at really early degrees of those fixed signs, or especially like the early part of Aquarius, this might be hitting you harder. If you aren't those things, if you don't have planets or points that are locking in with this first part of Aquarius in your chart, either by body or by aspect, this might not be as big for you. Um, and this is where too, I always, a lot of the astrologers on Twitter got me thinking about this a few years ago, in the American Sibley chart. So sorry, not super relevant if you're not in the US, but the Sibley chart, this is our second and third houses, one of the charts that we use for America. And Pluto going retrograde is part of our reckoning as a nation in a lot of ways. And so, okay, if I'm gonna be an armchair mundane astrologer and do a really poor job at it, I mean, I would say maybe this Pluto station has something to do a little bit with what's going on right now. Of course, with all the protests and everything in the world, Jupiter, Uranus, those signatures are, of course, all over that, groups in terms of revolution, in the name of progress and advancement or expansion of some kind, liberation, all of that going on at the same time. And both of these planets in their own way are kind of slowly moving toward this trine with Pluto here. So the station feels really important, maybe in a mundane sense, if I'm gonna dare to play around with that sphere, which I really don't have a lot of experience in. And then when just last thing to tie it in a neat little bow, when Pluto gets back into Aquarius, 11/19, so November 19th of 2024, they will be there until March of 2043. So these are long, big old Pluto kind of 20-year stories. That being said, we can look at these station points with Pluto or any of the outer planets and really get plot points for what Pluto is doing in our lives. So yeah, let's see here. Let me see if I'm missing anything in the channel think. Oh, hello, Anna from Holland. Hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Oh, Pluto is stationing opposite your sun. You will be optimistic and expect great things from this. I think that's a good thing. I'm definitely not about like toxic positivity. At the same time, man, why not? Let's hope for the best with Pluto. Everything is about context. And the way that I talk to people about Pluto in my consultations is we have to look at what Pluto is trying to change or just, what change is happening that Pluto is reflecting. That would be more I'm not a cause-based astrology person. I'm more of an omen-based person. So I would say, okay, what is Pluto reflecting here? But in any event, let's see. But yeah, let's hope for the best. But I guess to say it more explicitly, if say, I'll just use myself as an example. I have Pluto going over my Venus right now. Sort of. My Venus is at 5. Pluto's currently at 2. I can tell. I can tell it's all there. I can tell what's going on. Pluto's transforming my relationship sphere entirely, like in so many huge ways. And no offense to, this isn't a blanket statement on every single person I've dated. This is not a blanket statement on my entire love life and every single experience on it. But I will say it has not been a good time. It has not been an easy time. It has not been a nice time. And I'm like, you know what, Pluto? Take a shot. Do something with it. That's fine. What are you gonna do? Make it worse somehow? Like, I guess it could. It could always be worse. But relatively speaking, I'm like, it's fine. So we always have to think about the context. So yeah, I think that's oh, and maybe one last thing, just to give us a little bit more context for Pluto and just what they're about here. And I've talked about them a lot in the past, but I haven't talked about them lately. Pluto in Aquarius, this is a different set of archetypal things, I think, in a lot of ways. Not that, everything about Pluto and Capricorn had to do about Earth or was Earth based or was all about capitalism. But, in a Pluto in an Earth sign, we're going to see the kind of transformation, the huge power differentials, power imbalances, all of that. We're going to see that more in the Earthen realm when Pluto is in Earth. Uh, in Aquarius now, this is a place of air. This is thought and idea and ideology and structural frameworks of concepts and stuff like that. So we're seeing maybe power in terms of ideology or power in terms of thought or power of the mind, power of our neural pathways. That's maybe a little intersection, some materialism in there because I just whipped out some neurobiology or whatever. So Pluto in an air sign is its own thing, and it's a little different than Earth. So just gonna throw that out there. That's all I need to say about them, I think. But yeah, we'll try to have a good attitude because there's a lot of if you want to hear some fear-mongery stuff, Google what astrologers say about Pluto. Oofta. But okay. And there's usually a grain of truth in these things, right? They can do some things that are rough. So I'm not going to pretend like they can't. And for people who have had Pluto transits and know what can happen around them, like, yep, it can be really rough, but it doesn't always have to be that way. So we're also on a Mars Pluto sextile. So right now, Mars just entered Aries. I kind of did launch into it without doing my reflection. I'm going to blend the two together because we've got Mars now in Aries, and they have been kind of mired in this bit of a bog of Pisces. the first half of Pisces, Mars was running into Saturn, and that was slowing them down. So about a month and a half ago, that would have been sometime in the end of March. At that same time in middle of March, actually, let me check myself before I wreck myself. Yeah, that was, I guess, more end of March. Mars got into Pisces, had to deal with moving towards Saturn, which is a slowdown, can be a frustration for Mars, and especially like looking at what Mars is in charge of for you and the house topics that Aries and Scorpio are associated with, all of those things, including in Pisces as well. Maybe our actions toward Pisces house topics may have been mired a bit. Um, After that, Mars got away from Saturn, but then was dealing with Neptune. And I think a lot of complex situations, a lot of ambiguity, a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainty with that, with Neptune. And Mars just kind of charging ahead anyway, like just taking the next step and the next step and the next step. And we don't know what's going to happen from day to day, but we're just going to keep doing that. Um, or just kind of surrendering to the confusion of things and maybe just not doing as much. Um, Now, just as of, the 29th, then we saw Mars getting on the other side of things. Uh, it's interesting too. I was about to say, middle of March, end of March, Mercury started to enter their story where they did their pre-retrograde part. They stationed retrograde on, I think it was the 1st of April or something around there. Uh, and they did their retrograde while Mars was dealing with all of this stuff. So, between those two things, just Mars and that journey and then Mercury in their retrograde, March and April were a bit of a rough patch, I think. And Mercury doing that three part, which it's not done with yet. So we'll talk about that last bit today. Or will we? Yeah, we will. The Mercury Chiron conjunctions, of which we have had three. So yeah, I mean, all the Jupiter Uranus stuff has been really interesting and exciting and yeah, just fascinating to watch. The rest of the sky has been kind of a little bit wonky, but now a lot of that stuff is over. So as of April 25th, Mercury station direct. They will be out of their post retrograde stuff by like the 10th or so of May. Mars is now past Neptune and they are in their own sign. And so, just our decisive clarity, our clarity of the actions that would be skillful to take in any given moment, or just actions we want to take because we're in Aries. All of that is now, just as of pretty much today, going to be more online. So the analogy that I used was, looking at April, kind of getting our feet set up in the starting blocks, getting ready to go off into a sprint, you know? Um, so that's the vibes. And now that we're in May, I expect that, yeah, things are going to start to get going pretty fast. I'm looking outside right now and I'm seeing all of the dandelions that just burst forth over the last just like 3 days. I think this is day 3 of dandelions. So, even out there, the grass is growing. We actually were going to cut the grass here when Mars was with Neptune. And we went outside, and right before we were gonna start weed whacking something, we found a baby bunny. It was so sweet. It was just sleeping in this big tuft of grass in a little nest. And so it's like, yeah, we wanted to do some choppity chop with the grass in the yard, but we got a little bit, we got a little, those efforts were dissolved very, very quickly. Now that Mars is in Aries, it's like, okay, time to get out the weed whacker, time to get out the lawnmower. The baby bunny is gone. We checked. It's the parents have moved on, probably because we were messing around over there. So yeah. What else am I missing? Let me look at my reflection notes. Oh yeah, okay. So last Mercury reflection thing, they're with Rahu right now. So like 2 degrees away. Very cool. Rahu to me is like a confusing, kind of exciting, but confusing, unwieldy energy. And I like to get away from it if I can. I like Mercury to be away from it. That's nice. So as of like just in a few days, Mercury's finally getting a little space between just kind of this like, speaking of gravity wells, like my two gravity wells, like that metaphor for me works with Pluto. And I also feel like it works really well with the North Node. The North Node is just like this. Hell, maybe the South Node we can think about it like that too. But I think more the North Node insofar as it is this kind of voracious inlet for stuff. I always say nom nom for Rahu. And here's some examples that I saw when Mercury was with Rahu. So one of them was there was a biker delivery guy who on one of the nicer, it was like the first warmer day of the year, and they were totally underhydrated and they totally were overdoing it and exhausted from all their little deliveries and sending messages and dropping off stuff for people, and they passed out. So that was thing one. I was noticing around me a lot of information overload, information overwhelm with Mercury, with the North Node, and just the veracity of intake of information, that speed with Aries. Mercury and Aries with Rahu, overdoing games, overdoing trickery, overdoing dexterity, knitting, like hands getting sore from pushing buttons too many times. All of that, I saw all of those things. So, it's kind of like we look at what is Mercury in charge of: games, tricks, messages, exchanges, traveling. I always think like the short distance travel stuff with the moon for sure, and long distance travel for the sun with the joys scheme. But also I think like Mercury, just because we're exchanging our body in space time, it's like I'm either exchanging currency in commerce, I'm exchanging words or ideas in communication, I'm exchanging my body in space time. So doing too much of that too fast, any of that. And Mercury also in charge of games, dexterity, hands, shoulders, kind of things that we have two of in a sense. Yeah. Let's see. The other thing I wanted to mention with that. So, just knowing Mercury is going to get through a lot of these last little, they've been doing some heavy lifting this month, Mercury. If we have been just wrestling with things mentally or, continually coming back to a project where we need to keep, working with the communication with it or something like that. Mercury's really been putting some effort in and tying up loose ends over the last month or so. And I'm very excited for like the second week of May for them to really be free of a lot of that, getting past Rahu and Chiron. But we do need to understand that Mars then is our kind of last planet here. And then all of them are going to be, and now I feel like, oh, I need the Vedic astrologers to help me. Oh, it's not all of them though. Not all of the planets will be between the sides of the nodes. So never mind. But Mars still has to contend with Rahu. So we will get to that later this month. But just know, I mean, they're co-present. They're in the same sign. They're in the same room, Mars and this head of the dragon. And so all month, I think, similar to the examples of Mercury that I just gave, we need to be on notice about being really hydrated, especially if you're in a part of the world where it's just starting to get warm again. And it's like every winter, everyone has to remember how to drive for the first 2 weeks. And then it's like every summer, we all have to remember to like how to be in the sun for for the first 2 weeks of having sun. It's like we can't like work as hard without resting and hydrating as much as we can when it's colder, I think. Uh, so yeah, not overdoing it, staying hydrated, resting. Um, if there's like a lot of heat and a lot of Mars, I'm only a baby when it comes to knowing remediatory practices. And I know sometimes you don't want to add to a presence that is already very strong. And so here it would be like, okay, let's not add spicy food. Let's not add what Mars loves, which is like whiskey, like and liquor. So like if you're, partying or something and going ham, let's just cut to the chase, I guess. It's like May 19th. So we'll actually talk about it more next time. But we're going to be leading up to that all the next couple weeks. So just, know that we don't want to overdo it. maybe especially when the moon is there. So that's like the 5th. So yeah, just be careful. It's also a lot of gas in the tank. It's so much energy and so much clarity in just doing and getting stuff done. So I love this energy already. Already this morning, I was like, I've been my Mars, like decisive, like action oriented self has really just felt very circuitous with Neptune there. Like that has just felt very real to me. And already today with Mars barely in Aries, uh, I feel like I just have so much more clarity on how I want to move forward with like several things. So yeah, hopefully you're feeling that kind of activation and energy of Mars. That's kind of nice and refreshing. So it's not all bad. And two, just in general, Mars being a nighttime planet tends to be a little calmer when it's nighttime. So when the sun is above the horizon this month, Mars is going to be even spicier. After the sun sets, maybe those Mars things are going to start to turn into, it's kind of like swords into plowshares, a little bit more of that spice or energy that can come out in like irritation or impatience or impulsivity. At night might be cooled a little and we might feel more like productive in like a constructive way and putting our effort in a little bit more focused way. Just throwing that out there as a possibility. And then I think that was my last Mars thing. And then general thoughts too. We also have Venus who just entered Taurus on the 29th. They're gonna do a square with Pluto. I have been noticing that as well. Uh, so yeah, those are my wider points, I guess. And maybe that'll just be a good kind of inlet to the month here. Because right now I had mentioned on the first, we've got Mars in a sextile with Pluto, very vigorous. So again, like ready, set, go, like green light, my friends, like let us go. We just got through a couple weird months. It is time to move forward. It is time to have fun and do the things and get the things done or whatever. Or at least just feel that refreshed sense of clarity, like I was just talking about. Uh, so really powerful, just extra, add more, dial it up with Pluto being connected with Mars in a really constructive way. Uh, Venus, however, a square with Pluto can be a little tense, maybe some tension in relationships, especially maybe over the last day or two. Today, Venus is moving past this, but still pretty close. Right now, as I say this, it's 12:38, and she is separating from Pluto now by the arc minute. But past few days might have been a little tense relationally speaking, maybe some intense things or, of the nature of Mars, maybe more disruptive, discordant type energies in relationship, or just about values, or about values. Maybe there's, some of that high pressurized tension when it comes to values and asserting our values. Um, yeah, just keep thinking about all them protests. Like it really fits that, the way that things have especially been flared up over the last couple days. Um, Now that I'm a little further into the thing, I don't like to like start off with heavy stuff, but it's relevant to right now, and I do like to share something sometimes. Um, so yesterday I found out that a good friend of mine passed away, unfortunately. And that was my discordant, high pressurized relational situation was learning about a death that was really hard for me. So I was a little bereaved, still am. And that's part of why I'm feeling a little low today. So that was really hard to hear. But, I wanted to share about that too, because I found kind of a morose but kind of beautiful example of Jupiter in Uranus being liberation from difficulty and liberation from suffering. This person had been battling cancer for a few months, and Taurus was actually in their eighth house, their whole sign eighth house. And for them, their Jupiter Uranus liberation, their breakthrough was actually death. So I was like, oh, well, that makes sense, doesn't it? It really did. And yes, and I think you can get poetic about that. And I might in some cases, but not today. But it is clearly there in terms of the like I think we need to talk more about Jupiter being liberation from difficulty, Jupiter being liberation from difficult situations. And that's one of the old significations that comes from, I mean, it's in Valens. It's in Valens, who I believe we think had found some of these significations from Tusar of Babylon. Babylon being, it's like that astrology is from, I mean, or earlier than 400 CE, or sorry, earlier than 400 BCE. Like that's how old that designation of Jupiter being liberation from suffering is. And I don't hear us talking about that enough. And so I saw it in terms of death. It can be that too. So there's that going on. And I think too, just Mars, being mired with Neptune and all of like the inspiration that can happen when Mars is with Neptune. Because I was kind of shitting on Mars and Neptune a little bit, but I will say Mars and Neptune can be such a inspired piece of action and kind of moving forward in such a brave way despite uncertainty. So that also it had been going on very recently. So if it fits, it sits. And sometimes I feel like astrology is sad, but if it fits, there's something about that. Rob Bailey, who is a different astrologer, he said that on Twitter at some point. People were talking about whether or not they liked their birth charts or not. And he said something like, and again, this is Rob Bailey, look him up, he's fantastic. He said something like, I might not like it, but it fits. And that is comforting. So yeah, that's real. So I think, is there anything else I need to say about the past? I don't think so. Is there anything else I needed to say? Oh, there is a little bit of looks like a benefic enclosure. So today we've got Moon in Aquarius at 15 degrees as I speak. Tomorrow, they are going to be between the rays of Jupiter and Venus. They're going to go, looks like a square from Jupiter to what would that be? A sextile with Venus. And so that is Central Time on the second, benefic enclosure of the moon. And it's just a nice piece of weather. It's a time to do things. It's a time to expect that things will maybe go a little better than expected. Or if you're going through something difficult, this can be a nice point of rest or a respite. But that's on May 2nd from 4:28 a.m. Central Time to 9:21 p.m. Central Time. So effectively most of the day on the 2nd on Thursday Central Time. This is a nice little pocket. If you are more universal time, British Standard Time, that's going to be around, it's like morning to all through the day, like 9:28 a.m. UTC to 2:21 a.m. Then if you are more globally east, this actually is going to be more Thursday night into Friday morning that you're going to get this nice pocket. So like if you are in India, that would be 2:58 p.m. on Thursday. So your afternoon all through the evening into the morning until 7:51 in the morning on Friday. And if you're in way east Australia, that would be 7:28 p.m. on Thursday. So Thursday night into 12:21 in the afternoon the next day. So all morning the next day. It's a nice reception. I like it because the moon enters Pisces and then it gets a little reception with Venus being in Venus's exalted place. So that's just so nice. Venus moving right into a nice little sextile here. Right after having had the square with Jupiter. So there's not a ton of enclosures the first half of this month. There's only 2. That's one of them. So that's a nice thing. Let's just check. Yeah. So on the 3rd, things slow down a bit. because the moon's going to meet Saturn, which isn't a bad thing. But you know, let's say you're wanting to ask for a thing. This is what I say every month. Like, if you're trying to do a thing, Saturn can be rejection, delay, um, a bunch of stuff that you didn't get done that now you have to do. It's just it's kind of having to go through almost a some kind of agenda to get to do something sometimes. There can be limitations or constraints or barriers. And so on Friday, I'm more into Saturday in the global east, but so it's kind of that nice patch of weather, and then we get a bit of a slowdown. I saw that on the 3rd. It looks like by about 10 p.m. Central Time on the 3rd, that's when the moon is going to be like well past Saturn, like 3 degrees separating. And at that point, by the end of the day on the 3rd, on Friday, we'll be applying to Jupiter. So really that delay, just part of the 3rd. And then if we can hang in there, it'll clear up. Looks like by the end of the day into Saturday. And anytime I see the moon moving away from Saturn and toward Jupiter, that can also be an indication of, oh, I'm moving from a delay to a solution. I'm moving away from an obstacle towards some kind of progress. Neptune is here, so it might be a little unclear, but overall, we like to see that. We like to see things going away from Saturn and toward Jupiter usually. On the 4th, so speeding right along to Sunday, the 4th. Then we're going to have Moon with Mars, really invigorating day. But yeah, like I had mentioned a little earlier, on the 5th of May, this is definitely a day where we want to take it easy, not overdo things, whether that be our sense of urgency, impatience, impulsivity, really quick to say things, quick to think things, quick to feel things. That is not a bad thing in and of itself. Some people might say that is reactivity. It can be. Sometimes a fast reaction time, though, is really helpful. Like if you're playing a sport or if you are being a defensive driver, any of those things, like quick reaction time, super fantastic. When it comes to relating with people, less helpful usually. So just know that. And then too, just the moon, our body or physical exertion. This just, it's that kind of fuel in the tank to like get through a lot of physical work if you need to, or if you need to like move or something. Oh, this would be a good day to do that. Just make sure you're getting rest and taking breaks and having snacks and hydrating because this is hot and dry. Uh, Oh, it looks like on the 6th. Oh, hold on. Is there anything else I need to say? Oh yeah, and pick your battles too. Like that's some pick your battle territory. On the 5th and the 6th of May, that meme with the Viking. Put down some of those battles. That's still too many battles. Um, one of my astrology peers, Zach, recently mentioned that to me. Again, I totally forgot about it. It's such a good meme. Perfect timing for this month. Um, oh, Reverend Kai says, "Oh, thanks, y'all. You're so nice. Thank you." Oh, looking at the chat. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's actually the friend who I lost. He's the guy who made all this art back here, a lot of it. The big one I found in a dumpster. Actually, my ex found it in a dumpster. Uh oh, that one's me. That one's me. But this one, the ones with the white matting, those are I should just show you because they're so great. Oh yeah, and just this loose one. I used to live with him in Duluth. He was my roommate. I lived with him for a couple years. But this was a seashell. Can you believe that shit? Look at that shit. Whoa. His name is Michael Briegel. And then this. I don't know if you can see with the reflection, but Yeah. Wow. Just beautiful. Yeah. He was an artist, clearly. But I always had a lot of his art. Uh, so yeah, the artist. Thanks everyone. I appreciate that. Um, oh yeah, other people having some losses too. Yeah, grieving, man. And of course, not to make it about me, but it is interesting how these things show up in our own charts. And Moon was with Ceres, of course, on that day. It's like Moon is always with Ceres for me when these things come up. Um, and Reverend Kai is saying that they very much see Jupiter active in de death charts. Fourth house, yes, fourth house death, definitely a thing. Jupiter often through Pisces also are almost always significant factors. Yeah, there's so much we could have a big long discussion around the campfire about Jupiter and all of that. Yeah, I've always just been like surrounded by his arts. And the last time I talked to him was about a year ago. And that was the other big thing too. It's like, man, I am 36 and this is, granted the other I recently lost a teacher last fall, an important dance movement instructor, teacher, mentor person. Um, but he was in his 40s. That's still young though, but like, man, 36 and like people are starting to like die of stuff. And it is really a reminder to like talk to your friends, like um, whether they're long distance and you've lost touch or whatever. Like I think at 36, I just really assume that like there's time. Of course we've got time. I can get busy with my life for a year. I can get busy with my life for 6 months. There's always time. It's like, nah, man. It was like 4 months from diagnosis, I guess, until then. Like, man. So, and Pluto's on my Venus. So there you go. That's, again, not to make it about me, but this is how things kind of show up in charts. And this is as astrologers, I think how we kind of work through them. We work through our own feelings sometimes is seeing that reflection in the chart just to kind of, I don't know, it just helps. So I digress, but thanks everyone. Y'all are sweet. And I'm trying to learn how to share a little bit more, even though I don't always get a kind reception, but I can't let that stop me. Right. So what is going on? Oh yeah, this. Okay. Exactly like the stuff we're talking about right now. It's like these tenderoni conversations. So many tenderoni things when you get Moon with not that this is today, but this is the vibe. Like Moon, Mercury, Chiron, when they're together, it is an opportunity for very tender, heartfelt conversations with yourself or with others. It is a time of healing words, but it can also be a time of hurtful words, which can be when this goes lopsided. Um, so that's on the 6th. If yeah, this is if things are like crunchy on this day for any reason, like on the 5th or the 6th, I don't think it's going to be anything new. Mercury is retracing their steps here for the third time, I guess, second time, third time, whatever. Uh, Having that third of 3 conjunctions with Chiron, which have been, so maybe this is where we can look back at our journal. Oh, not that. Um, did I? Yeah, Mercury Chiron conjunctions. The first one was March 18th. The second one was April 15th. And then uh last and third one is May 6th. So one thing here is we also don't want to forget to consider the Gemini and Virgo parts of the chart because they may have been part of this whole retrograde conversation. They may have been part of this whole 3-part Chiron conversation. But Mercury and Chiron, again, like hurtful words, healing words. It's the sphere of the mind and thought and judgment. And what judgments are actually like helpful, constructive versus what judgments are divisive, what judgments are dividing or discordant or just ouchy and don't have any kind of substance? Those are all questions. There's so many questions here. It really depends. This is maybe riffing on this third house of this hypothetical Aquarius rising person, a place of communication to begin with. But if this is a different part of your chart, if this is about money, maybe it's you going through your feelings with money or pains or challenges, recurrent challenges with money stuff. If it's the second house, it could also be around, it's your whole basis of resources. So that can be anything that supports you, whether that is money, your skills or talents. It can be your needs in that way. And so perhaps if you're like a Pisces rising, this whole Mercury story, whether it be the retrograde or with Chiron, have been about something to do with that whole needs, resources realm. So anyway, case in point, I don't think it's going to be new. Don't forget the Virgo and Gemini house topics and how that might be coming in here and playing with the Aries house topics. Uh, and yeah, that's all kind of coming in on the 6th. So I don't know what could be. Depends on, there's other factors too. Just looking at transits in general, and this might be something you already do, but it's also good to consider like the other timing techniques like that define a time lord. So for instance, like annual profections is kind of the most common one I think that we use. But also like looking at decennials, I've been looking at that more and more lately. And that can also highlight certain planets or planetary configurations in your chart that might be louder at any given time. So if you're having a Mercury time lord year, then Mercury retrogrades and Mercury stories might be louder. If you're not in a year where Mercury's activated or highlighted for any reason, then this may not be a super loud thing for you. But that's what's going down. I think that's all I have to say about that. Is Mercury visible? I believe they are, right? Yes, they are visible. That's a good thing to consider too. Mercury, Mars, all of these folks are visible. So, the acting, the doing, the saying, the planning, the thinking, the exchanges, all of that's happening. Like it's all happening. It's not hidden or concealed. It's not obscured in any way by the sun. It's not being made less effective by being too close to the sun. So all of like the Scorpio, Aries, Virgo, Gemini, all those house topics and whatever's going on in Aries, all of those house topics, all of those should be running kind of in a forward-ish sort of way, if you can say it like that. I know people like scoff at the word forward these days, but anyway, you know what I mean. More functional. It's what the techniques say. Versus like, okay, Venus, she's doing fine because she's in her own sign, but she is hidden under the beams technically right now. We can't see Venus as clearly. So likewise, the Venus ruled things and the Taurus things, they're happening, but they might not be like the most loud thing. All the more reason to be extra careful and hold the Aries, Mars, Mercury energies of action and word. We got to hold those more carefully, I think, because they are very visible. It's like people are saying stuff and doing things. They're not holding back. And that could be a problem in some cases. And that might be exactly what we need in other cases. So let's move on to the Taurus New Moon the next day. And this is what leads us into the Taurus New Moon a little bit, although the last aspect that the moon is making, I believe, no, it's not Venus. Let's watch together. Yeah, moon hits Venus. Yeah, and then actually, so this is where I have to get kind of picky. The sun is further along than Saturn in their degrees and arc minutes. So the last aspect the moon makes before this new moon is actually with Saturn. It hits a sextile with Saturn. Another way that we can see that in this particular software. Yeah, we can see the moon here is applying to Saturn within 6 degrees, 49 minutes, versus the sun, that's a little further away, 7, 9 arc minutes. So it's always good looking at a new moon or a full moon to look at the moon's last aspect and their next aspect, because that kind of tells us a little bit about the storyline. So the last aspect is going to be this more serious but constructive conversation with Saturn. Another just gentle reminder from Saturn about the limitations, constraints, about the barriers, obstacles, whatever's the hard work that's being done in Pisces. Just a gentle little reminder, or working with that really well. Then the moon is going to have their rebirth moment. And then if we are not counting the outer planets, then it moves into a conjunction with Jupiter after that. So we get kind of this Saturn to Jupiter thing. Again, we see that being with the limitation, the obstacle, the restriction, the difficulty, the hard work, whatever it is, the commitment, the responsibility with Saturn. We're being with that. It doesn't look like a huge problem. And then there is, as we open up into this new cycle, this new lunation for the next 4 weeks, it is seated and moves right into this sense of hope, faith, growth, opportunity, optimism. So Saturn can be like this stable, firm, committed base on which to grow upon or to expand upon. It can also be, hey, here's these limitations, here's the realistic situation. And then we can be like, okay, cool. What can we build if that's the case? What can we do if that's the case? What can we still be inspired or excited about within that container, right? So yeah, I don't know. It feels good. That's just one more reason why I like this new moon, which I'm going to talk about more right now. So Taurus New Moon, it happens in the second decan of Taurus, right in the middle. It's 17 degrees. Let me get it pulled up. Yeah, it happens at exactly 10:21 p.m. Central Time. Sorry, it's at 18 degrees 2 arc minutes. My bad. Venus is in the house. She is there to chaperone and oversee these two, to give them resources. She's even in the same decan as them. Uh, and of course, Jupiter is here, which is fun because they also help bring stabilization, growth, a chance for connecting under the auspices of, now we have safety, comfort with Taurus, stability, but now also under the auspices of goodwill and meaning and fun and purpose. So, it's not just, this isn't just like a new moon for charcuterie. This isn't just a new moon for like, we're gonna have a nice time for the next 4 weeks. I mean, which you totally can, and that's like beautiful, and like do that too. I know I am. Like May is shaping up to be like a very fun month for me. I'm very excited about May. So yeah, but also like Jupiter is here. So it can have even more kind of more meaning and purpose and like fit into a wider perspective of things. Um, anyway, I think that we can really kind of bring in the Jupiter ruled places into this new moon with whatever we are seeding or beginning. So for this theoretical Sagittarius rising, perhaps they're having a new moon in terms of like health and wellness or something like that. Um, where can they get like assistance, help, support? That could be Jupiter. So, I mean, the first house, that's just like vague in general, your general circumstances. Help from yourself. Okay, cool. But also the fourth house, maybe there's something in your private life that's really helpful for your health routine. Maybe it's having a private life that's really helpful for your health routines and your health in general. Maybe it's helpful for recovering from something. Parent relationships, people you live with, those people. Uh, any way that can be supportive. Whatever new beginnings might be happening in Taurus, it's like perhaps there's some support to be either given or shared with these other Jupiter ruled places. I also wonder too, of course, Venus bringing in topics of, it could just simply be about preferences, desires, like, yeah, this is what I truly enjoy. This is what is desirable and preferable to me. So I'm going to make this happen. That can be the case with Venus. It can also be relational. This could be a new moon that might have to do with relationship, romance, love. It doesn't have to be. It can be around ethics, values, what you value. A lot of times that's sex, drugs, money, rock and roll, but it can be about more than that if you want. Yeah, all those adornments Could be a new moon opening up new chapter in terms of how you adorn yourself. Granted, here the seasons are changing. Maybe the seasons are changing where you are, and it's time. It's, shoulders are going to come out soon. I'm going to get my new appearance on. I'm going to adorn myself a little differently. So yeah, let's see if there's any other. I know there's other things I wanted to say about this. Yeah, Mars can't see it. It's past the square with Pluto. Yeah, and any big changes too, it's kind of like if we are dealing with big changes in our lives with Uranus being there, how can we, do our best to um, have a hope for the future? Because I think Jupiter can be that hope for the future. It is faith and hope and aspiration. And so, if there are a lot, if Uranus is causing instability or change or disruption or interruption, um, Jupiter can be, kind of combating that or taking what is interrupted and turning lemons into lemonade, essentially. Uh, of course, Jupiter and Uranus already this has been kind of this energy of kind of breakthrough and burgeoning forth with something. New moons are kind of like that. So them together, it really does just feel like now this breakthrough energy of Jupiter Uranus is really getting a foothold in the soil here. So I think this is just such a fertile time. Like like how people are online about every single new and full moon, like every single new and full moon online is like a big effing deal. Like someone out there is making it into a really big deal. This is the one where I actually would. I'd be like, I should have done like a workshop for this and been like, this is the one, everyone. We need to get our moon water things prepared or whatever we do, whatever your rituals are, it's time to do them. This is the one. This is the one. So, oh, and now I'm actually having a thought. I wonder, oh, my electional brain is thinking, um, does anyone know Austin Coppock's book, 36 Faces? The re-release. Could it be this weather? I don't know. I'm speculating. It's just all mere speculation. Uh, all mere speculation. But this would be, I would expect the people to be releasing things under this weather. This is just a good lunation cycle to be releasing things. Uh, and then I guess bringing in the tarot correspondences a bit. Um, This is the middle decan, which has to do with the Six of Pentacles. And the sixes all seem to have this sense of, uh, it's like the pinnacle or the culmination of something, the fruiting of something. It's like the fives, you're working towards something, or something is not enough, or there's this kind of agitation energy, and then you get to the six part, or whatever. It feels like the Six of Wands is like a victory kind of vibe. The Six of Pentacles does feel like that. We have, especially in Taurus, we are cultivating stability. We're doing routines. We're doing maintenance. All of that is kind of trucking along. This is the decan that is ruled by the moon in descending Chaldean order. So like the moon really being about those cyclic things we regularly do. Let me actually get the cool wheel out. Yeah, the moon. Uh, so it just feels like just that Six of Pentacles energy, so stable. This is the place to plant upon. This is the soil to build seeds in. So whatever's going on in the Taurus topics, this is just a great time to turn over a new leaf or start a new project with whatever topic the house topics are bringing in. Um, Again, for this theoretical Sagittarius rising person, conflict, labor, health, and pets. Doing a new starts, new beginnings with how you do conflict. Maybe it's healthy conflict. Maybe how you do pet stuff or relationships with pets. Maybe you know, how you do labor, new beginnings there, hopefully good ones, and you're not, ones where you're not being exploited. Um, the sixth house can be a place of service. You know, it's kind of like that whole continuum of the sixth house. I don't do like that whole Virgo sixth house conflation thing, but I think we can get there in kind of a similar way when we think about the sixth house. And here, this is just for Sag rising, so I'm just going to go off on this for fun. The sixth house, joy of Mars. It is a place of labor. It can be a place of sacrifice, but it is primarily, I think, a place of labor and toil. It's like dukkha, like the reality of the human condition and how we have to continually feed ourselves to keep hunger at bay, and we have to continually labor in the fields in order to feed ourselves. Like this is the nature of the sixth house, and that toil and labor can be anywhere from completely exploitative in the terms of slavery at the worst case, all the way to the middle ground, which I think for average for most of us is bill paying labor. A lot of us are exploited. We're not compensated fairly. Uh, the other end of the spectrum is, I'm not being compensated for it, but I have chosen that. I'm okay with that. And in fact, it's fine. I'm going to serve. And so there can be that sacrifice element too. New moon in the sixth, new chapter with all those topics potentially. I think that's all I have to say about that new moon. Well, maybe last thing, and something I guess I kind of buzzed over, the sun doing a sextile with Saturn. So this is, I think, just in general, you know, of course, with Saturn tends to be more of a serious tone, but with the sextile, it is just so constructive, and I think more than anything can be a structural firmness, a structural support for the sun. It's like healthy limitations, healthy boundaries, and the construction of those. That's what that feels like to me. So really bringing in these Jupiter ruled places, just because Saturn's in here, that's all right. I think they can offer a lot of potential benefit to the sun and the things that are going on in Taurus there. It could be committing. You know, maybe it's like, yeah, this is whatever's going on here is really great. I'm going to commit to it. That's very Saturny. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that. And then we get the moon moving into Gemini the next day or two. So the moon's gonna, I guess we'll go a little slower. The moon's gonna move through Jupiter, through Uranus, through Jupiter. So that's more Wednesday the 8th. That's gonna be later on Wednesday. The more global east you go into the evening on the 8th, you'll get that moon Jupiter, that nice kind of, yeah, Wednesday. Okay. Most of the world, Wednesday looks nice. Once we get moon into Gemini, of course, we get this little trine with Pluto. So that's always there. Little sextile with Mars energy. So pretty vigorous. I would say if the 7th and the 8th are a little bit more chill, after that, after the moon gets away from Jupiter out of Taurus, the speed picks up, the intensity picks up, less chill. Moon is not bright at this time though, so I don't think it's going to be like super duper busy, but more busy than it has been. Like so, midday on the 8th in the west, more in the global east. That's going to be the end of the day, Wednesday into Thursday. Things will start picking up for you on Thursday, on the 9th if you're more globally east. Yeah, lively, very lively. And then at this point too, the sun is closing in on Uranus. So we should probably take a moment to talk about that. So this actually perfects, I believe, on the 10th, 11th. Let's work smarter, not harder. Yeah, that's May 13th. So if we are just at like May 9th, so May 9th, active, lively, energetic kind of day. Actually, yeah. We got to talk about the Saturn square. So there will be caveats to that lively energeticness because we're running into the Lord of Rejection. But overall, it just does look very, very constructive, very active on the ninth. Uh, but I want to watch out for, I mean, this is the overall energy. If we just kind of lean back and squint our eyes, as much as like, all right, May 9th, busy, active, lively. We're moving out of that nice chill new moon that we just had. This is like a crunchy day. You know, that lively, energetic activity might be kind of crunchy. It might require pivoting, adjustment. We might have to be more patient than we want to be. We might really be wanting to go with that overcoming Mars energy. It's in a sextile, which is nice. It's a little bit more tempered. At the same time, the moon is going to be moving roughly. I mean, it's going to be moving into a square with Saturn. So we always, every time the moon is in Gemini now, we need to exercise caution with some things, especially like where we have to worry about delays, obstacles, or rejection. We got to like look at when the moon is going to get past Saturn because that'll help with that kind of energy. Um, I got distracted. So yeah, by the ninth, okay, we're getting that overcoming square. We're also having this kind of ungovernability at the same time. Like the sun with Uranus can be, it's just such a strong identity. It's because that Uranus can be such a we think about the revolutionary, we think about the eccentric person, and I haven't heard a better analogy, so I'm gonna keep citing it, but Austin Coppock talking about the goth kid who's the goth kid every day. Like people commit to being weird, right? Like that can be Uranus and Sun. The Uranus Sun people that I know in my own life, I have a few, and I think depending on the orbs, I could even count as a Sun Uranus person. They're about 10 degrees apart for me, but like my mom has these like right on top of each other. Um, does Trump? Does anyone know if Trump does? I forget. But they are like just ungovernable, stubborn, cannot change their mind about things. Like they are them, like to the point where I'm a little jealous of like, wow, to just be that strongly you and just not give any F's seemingly looks so refreshing. So there can be that kind of ungovernability, wanting to do your own thing, maybe needing a little bit more independence and space. It is like freedom, liberation in terms of like, just like going against, railing against the tides. So like considering the protest energy, I mean, May 9th to like May 11th, 12th, I think, the ungovernability and the defiance of people is probably going to be pretty strong in our own lives, like kind of on a mundane level, just a need for more independence and space and freedom in what you're doing and the room to be you and authentically you and not be kind of hemmed in any way. That might be important on May 9th through the 11th. I think sometimes if we don't have this in our lives, like just naturally, like with jobs or, if you're a parent of young children and they're like picking up on swear words, you can't just be swearing everywhere all the time. Like, it's not as simple as just being like, oh yeah, I just get to be myself all the time. God, I remember like I never had the side shave at work. I'd always flip my hair over and hide it. Like yeah, just some places to be authentic actually kind of gets in the way of my other kind of goals, but this is that ungovernability. So we've got that going on. We've also got the moon in Gemini, would like to have flexibility, adaptability, do what it wants when it wants. But it's got some of these more like the Mars Saturn influence overcoming the moon here is like a resistance. Like the moon is not able to move as freely. The moon is not able to do what it wants to do or think everything it wants to think without like some kind of challenge to it or something. So, that's a recipe if I ever saw one. Venus is here, she's strong, quote unquote strong. She's in her domicile. It looks like, yeah, she's in her domicile at least. And in general in Taurus, I think she does tend toward more harmonizing. I want to keep the peace. I want to keep things kind of stable here, hell or high water. I will do about anything to keep things stable for better or for worse. At the same time, We know from the Mesopotamian Sumerian traditions, she was not just a goddess of love and beauty, she was also a goddess of war. And so I kind of wonder, sometimes when I see a strong Venus in a chart, that's not that that person is just like never having conflict. Sometimes you get thrust into conflicts out of reasons of ethics or fairness or something of that Venusian nature. So, given the rest of the chart, I think Venus is going to hold us on the rails for the most part. I think Venus and Saturn, they'll keep us kind of will keep things on the rails, but I can see a potential for things to get off the rails a bit. So if you would like, maybe a mind your own business day on the 9th. It depends on what you're doing and what you want to do. So that's what I have to say about that. Uh, on the 10th, it's all just kind of, I mean, just as strong in a lot of ways, if not stronger. But we at least have the moon past Saturn. So, but at the same time, when I say it's like, God, that kind of energy of like, mm, itchiness, a lack of freedom, a lack of authenticity, and wanting to do those things and maybe not being able to, or not being able to move as freely. That lessens up a little bit on the 10th. We do have a big need for authenticity still with the moon being with Uranus, but this last decan of Gemini, where we have this 10 of Swords energy of overthinking, of really tangling our mind into knots about things, that energy is there. So it's like, yeah, overall, the 9th and the 10th don't feel like the most warm and fuzzy types of days, but let's just extend it to the 11th, the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th. So then the next thing that really is on my radar is that the moon runs into a square with Mars. Now, again, energizing, yes. Uh, the energy to begin, the initiatory quality of these cardinal signs to get going on a thing is so strong here. And so, this might be that activation energy that you need to get over a hump or to get, through something. So I don't want to say that this is a negative energy or anything, but this is also historically like the type of configuration that happens when there is conflict, especially with women. So this kind of like that old gendered thing with the moon being mothers and women. The moon also can be about the local community gathering kind of quality. The moon was said to gather groups of people sometimes, and gather them together. And so this could be groups of people gathering and then conflict. So, just be safe on the 11th, be extra safe. I would carry extra snacks, extra whatever you need to be safe on the 11th. So then, is there anything else I need to say? Yeah, so on the 10th, we've got the moon and Mars. I guess more on the 10th into the 11th. The farther global east you are, the more definitely more the 11th. You want to be on notice about this moon Mars square. And then after that, we get the moon coming into contact with Mercury and Chiron. And so this is another kind of oof. Yeah, there's kind of a whole streak of days that there could be, a potential for fighting words, a potential for hurtful words, a potential for things just kind of slipping out of the mouth. Again, a lot of this comes from my trepidation with Rahu. If you like Rahu, you might have a more rosier outlook on these days. But yeah, just be careful on the 12th with ideas and words and thoughts, and use them wisely. The problem solving energy is big on these days as well. When I think about Mercury and Mars together, strong problem solving capability. Jupiter, Uranus, Sun, very problem solving, finding disruptive solutions, finding, you know, progress through interruption. There's a lot of what's going on right now. So we can see like clearly today's May 1st. Yeah, I don't think all this kind of civil unrest stuff is going to be quiet for a long time. This looks like it being very loud going forward. As Leslie Knope says, carrying loudly, yelling, carrying loudly. Uh, is there anything else? I mean, here's the good thing. The moon in Cancer getting a square from all the Aries stuff, which could be a little tense or crunchy. So much smoothing over energy, so much constructive energy in the air as well, though. So whatever we're working through, whatever problems we're kind of solving or working through on like May 9th through May 12th, whether that just be like how to exist in this world and have enough space for me and my voice and my presentation and my authenticity, I think there's just like a good amount of chance of success with a lot of these expressions, with a lot of these things. It's like Jupiter and Venus are imparting success. So that is very helpful. So on the 11th, just to back up a little bit, the moon does start to separate from Mars on the 11th at 1:36 p.m. Central Time. So all Saturday morning on the 11th, the moon will be applying to this potentially prickly energy on the 11th. All morning on the Central Time, the global East, this is going to be with you well into the next day, it looks like. Uh, yeah, like until like 4:30-ish p.m., like in the very farther and east time zones. So gird your loins on the 11th. Lots of energy for doing stuff. Just pick your battles, pick your fights on the 11th. Um, Good day for fighting if you're going to do it. Uh, the moon is going to apply with a sextile with Venus during this time from the 11th and the into the 12th. So that, that could be a bit of a balm if things get a little prickly on the 11th. More on the 12th, things smooth out. Mercury is applying to Pluto as well at this time. It's good to note by a square. So as Mercury makes their transition from Aries into Taurus, tropically speaking, it's going to move into a square with Pluto. And anytime a planet is moving into a square with Pluto, it really highlights patterns. It can highlight power dynamics, power indifferences. And Mercury is thinking about it, planning around it, trying to do their trickery around it. Like it reminds me of Arget or Hermes playing their flute to the like 100-eyed Argus who was guarding like this panopticon like prison thing, and he like played a lute or a flute or something and lulled this beast to sleep so that it could get around it. That's what Hermes does. They play a lute to get around the problems. So this mid-May, I mean, Mercury square Pluto, powerful words, powerful messages, powerful trickery, powerful gymnastics, powerful Mercury stuff. Um, our words can have a lot of power. Uh, and like we've been kind of going over, it's like those words are either medicine or poison. So, if people are using words to try to persuade, Mercury with Pluto is another kind of persuasive influence. And with a square happening, it's like Mercury square Pluto, squares being of the nature of Mars, it's like discordant. There's a discordant nature to things, and like a persuasion in a discordant atmosphere, or persuasion that is nefarious potentially, or so, I mean, that's a big topic now, like with where people get their news and where people get their information and the consequences of all of the the consequences to a functional society, to democracy, allegedly. All of these kind of ways of having information and understanding the world around us, and then Pluto doing that distortion thing to it. So when I think about persuasion gone wrong, but again, at the same time, On the other side of that, we can get powerful oratory, powerful words, powerful rhetoric, for better or for worse. It can be really inspiring, but it can also be really problematic. So that's another energy. There's a lot of interesting energies. So we've got defiance and ungovernability. We've got a lot of problem solving energy. We've got a lot of um, too much Mars just in the air in general. Uh, and then we've got Pluto sending this overcoming square to these Taurus planets, bringing in topics of power dynamics or um, imbalance, something of that nature. Sometimes Pluto just feels like immovable obstacles that, it's like you don't have power over. Not that we don't try to push against it anyway. Uh, I digress. So, yeah, I just wrote strong expressiveness, assertiveness in verbal, writing, or oratory form. Powerful messages. Continues through the morning of the 13th. Yeah, and then a sextile from Jupiter to this Mercury Pluto business. Um, Sextile, that's not it. But Jupiter is here. Jupiter is involved. That adds a bit of a coherence, I think, to the messages. Jupiter being involved in a Pluto square, now more turning into a Jupiter Pluto trine. It's like the messages, it's not just spitting facts. It is in the grander scheme of things, in the grander context, the meaning and the purpose and the coherence of the messages becomes more with that. And the ability for those messages to inspire or be aspirational. So then on the 13th, we do get Sun and Saturn, or sorry, we get Sun and Uranus together finally. I'm gonna look exactly when they, yeah, it's May 13th at 4:13 in the morning, Central Standard Time. Especially the sun ruled things in your chart. So for this hypothetical Aries rising person, this would be their fifth house of fun, leisure, rest, romance. That might be what's super interrupted that day. It could be a nap that is interrupted. You could be interrupted by finding out you have some resource now. Could be, you know, with Jupiter and Venus flanking this, I mean, whatever is interruptive or disruptive. I just really, it's got to be good, right? Like, come on, like, throw us a bone. Like, I feel like it needs to be somewhat nice or helpful. Or, what I am also seeing is that, okay, we want to squish Jupiter and Uranus together. I do think sometimes they are very separate, even though they're like, together. Uranus is causing disruptions. Jupiter is simply the ability to navigate the disruption. Jupiter is simply the ability to make it through that disruption without being harmed or worse. So, I mean, if there are disruptions happening in the Taurus parts of your chart, it's going to be okay, essentially. That's what I feel like this could say in some way, shape, or form. Um, the defiance, the need for independence, space, to be yourself. If you're feeling a little itchy or irritable on the 13th because you feel like you're being held back or held down or anything like that, this is a good day to have some kind of form of expression around that. Again, whether that be with others, with yourself, some way that these energies can come out. So if that is as simple as, using your wardrobe to express yourself in a new way, or, especially I'm thinking like aesthetic things, or trying something novel or new in your sense environment. So trying, something, I usually don't go for music first, with Taurus or Venus, but any new foods, experiences, tastes, smells, touches, any new thing that you can experience, that would be a really good outlet for this Sun Uranus activity. Any kind of novelty that you're bringing in would be great, especially when it comes to the Taurus things. So for me, maybe I'll rearrange my office. Maybe I'll rearrange, I don't know, something, in my home, in my fourth house. So that that's worth That's worth noting. I think if we don't have outlets for that, we can get a little crabby sometimes with Sun Uranus if we feel like we're not able to express ourselves fully. Um, so at this time on the 13th, at least in the West, we're kind of coming into Monday on May 13th, softly, smoothly. Uh, this is going to be later in the day, the further east you go. But once the moon, I have mixed feelings about the moon in Leo at this time. The first thing that we end up having is really a moon Pluto Mercury T square. So all of this stuff that I've been talking about in terms of powerful messages, powerful oratory or persuasion, maybe even nefarious or discordant exchanges of words or something like that. But the moon opposite Pluto is usually more pressurized. It can be a bit pressurized. We're getting this really awesome energetic trine from Mars. So it's like, oh, the energy to want to do and go and begin is so strong here. And the energy to want to say and express is so strong on Monday. Uh, we're not held in by Saturn, but it's like, yeah, this feels like a big day on the 13th, honestly. Between this moon, Pluto, Mercury T square, and the Sun Uranus conjunction, all of that together feels like this is an explosion of expressiveness. This is a burst of wanting to move forward through some pressurized situation. But it does feel pressured. So it could be maybe you're starting a new job on Monday on the 13th. This could simply just be you starting a new job and having kind of high pressured exchanges with people where you just really want to do well and put your best foot forward. And you feel that kind of like the power dynamic of being the new person in the room. Um, if you've come in to disrupt a pattern in some other situation. You know, that was my role in a couple jobs. It's always kind of awkward, It's like you don't just go into a place and start saying stuff, but it can be that kind of just very natural things that happen in life or conversations that are important to us that feel a bit more pressurized. So that could be going on the 13th. But it is just a great time to get shit done, take names, all that because of the fire energy at this time. Venus is sextile Saturn. Uh, they really feel to be keeping things on the rails. This sextile between Venus and Saturn being a commitment to fairness, a commitment to ethics, commitment to justice. Venus sextile Saturn, just commitments to other people can be a thing. A commitment to an aesthetic, a commitment to uh, finding pleasure and having connection in the life, a new commitment to any of those types of Venusian pursuits. That's very stabilizing, firming energy here between those two. So while there might be, it's just so interesting because there's so many things in the sky in May that are very like energetic, loud, enthusiastic, chaotic, messy. But then there's these other, like, it's just between Pisces and Taurus. Some of these energies in Pisces and Taurus are coming together and being so stabilizing and firming that, it really seems to anchor the rest of the sky in a really nice way. So even if your life is a shit show for some reason, I do feel like the train stays on the rails this month. So it's kind of like saying, all right, if we've been saying that the astrology weather from I was saying March and April, it was difficult. In May and June, it's quote unquote more functional. Let's say you're in May and June and you're like, hey, Claire Moon, my life is a mess and it's not doing great and it's not very functional. In those cases, I mean, we always have to look at the context. Is it slightly more functional? Is it slightly more stable? Is it a little better than it was before? I hope that for you. And I'm going to cross my fingers. So we always have to look at what the context is. But I think for people who are in kind of a stable situation, this can be like such a cool energetic jumping off point because we have this energetic stuff going on in the sky at the same time as some of these more stable, firming, growthy type energies. On the 14th, I think the thing that really stood out to me was this Moon Mars trine. So if you got things to do, people to see, places to go, yeah, definitely on the 13th. That's going to be a good day. That is really the case. The moon is going to be applying to that Mars up until, so on the 14th, let me see here. That's pretty much done in the West while we're asleep. That extends in the global East into your afternoon on the 14th. And then after that very energizing trine on the 14th, then the moon's going to apply to Venus and Saturn. Sorry, just Venus. So 14th, 13th, and the 14th, we get this nice energizing trine from Mars, and then this affirming, stabilizing square from the benefics. So the 14th looks great, looks nice, looks like an enjoyable day. 15th as well. Then Mercury is going to enter into, yeah, it's like this is all very nice. But again, we do still have this Mercury Pluto square to think about. But the fact that the moon's pinged that now by the 14th. So like I think that Mercury Pluto business is going to be the loudest on the 13th. On the 14th, we start to get away from that and we get to experience just more of the Mars, Venus, Jupiter niceness in the sky. And finally on the 15th, we get the moon in a nice overcoming square with Jupiter. So all of that seems really great. And then we get Mercury entering into Taurus. That's at May 15th at 12:05 p.m. Central Time. So about noon Central Time on the 15th. That'll be later in the day, the further east you go. That is a slower Mercury now. The speed of a lot of things is going to still be going because of Mars, but the speed of communication, the speed of planning, the execution of plans. There's this slower vibe now with Mercury being in here. There already was with all these other planets in Taurus. So I guess, maybe that's another message just throughout May. I mean, if we look at like where we are now, right now, we just got Venus in here. We've had the sun in here. We're on this increasing like kind of Taurian vibe. And I think, Mars and Aries alone is enough to say that the pace of May for me is fast. Like overall, if I had to give one answer about the pace for May, I'm going to say fast. At the same time, all these Taurus planets, like they do want to take their time in honoring like, okay, yes, we're going to go on this path, but am I enjoying it? Is it fun? Am I getting good food and nourishment and safety? Yes, we are moving forward, but is this a plan that makes sense for more than the next 2 weeks? Is this a plan, Mars, that makes sense that can be something that we can commit to, make part of the structure, make part of the routine? That's what Taurus is really like. They want to keep and stay. Like they want to find the place to build. And once they've found the nice place to build, they want to build there and stay there. Once you've found the routines that work, we want to keep doing them and gain and cultivate. This is where my favorite Taurus word is cultivate. Cultivate. And all of the best things I think in life take time to cultivate. Even if we just think about Venus being in here, Venus is harmony, more than one thing coming together. One of the first things I did this year is if we count around by my ascendant doing annual profections, I'm in a first house year highlighting Saturn things, but also Venus. So Venus is in my first house. And the first thing I did this year was I went to a small little meditation retreat looking at harmony, all about harmony and how to cultivate harmony. And it talked about, how harmony is the bringing together of more than one thing. And they used the example of melodies, like a harmony, like music tones, where it's like, yeah, we might have more than one tone or pitch or whatever, but you bring them together and they sound great. So how do we do that? And I think the pacing really matters because a lot of that takes time to kind of figure out and sort out, like which one of these notes sounds good with the other ones, or um, cultivating like social harmony. That like literally the word cultivate, it implies that it takes time, it takes consistent effort. When you're cultivating something, you're basically like tending to a growing living thing that needs consistent tending to. And that kind of pacing slows us down. So, but that's the natural part of the process. And if it's going faster than that, I think sometimes that can be a sign that, like, yeah, we're not actually doing these Venus things. We're not taking the time to cultivate harmony or understanding or growth. We're just having this Mars kind of entitled, like, let's go, let's do it. Mars isn't always entitled, but I think sometimes when we want to go fast, I can think about trying to socialize on the internet. Oh my gosh, now I'm going to go off into a whole rant. I'm not though. It'll be a short one. People don't want to take the time to get to know each other online anymore. Like, it's like, look at your bio. If it's not in the bio, then I don't know it about them. And I'm going to all of a sudden fill that void of information with all kinds of assumptions, parasocial assumption bullshit. And then, and I'm not going to get to know the person. Like that seems to be the dominant attitude online these days on social media because the pace is so fast. It's not about socializing. It is not about making connection. The idea that online, like, I mean, like the word community is so fraught now, but I feel like we have a community here, a little one at least, like because I'm showing up, like I go to Spencer Michaud's YouTube things sometimes, or I'm keeping up with, certain pods of astrologers' work, and that's a consistent effort to keep informed and up to date with them and go to their websites and read their writings. And that's something that happens in community where we're really over time consistently devoted to putting that energy into each other and getting to know each other. That's Taurus. That's the pacing of things. Mars, that's not the pace of things. It's like very fast. So we have to, all of this here, I think, when I put them together, it just feels like a beautiful energy to initiate and begin things. And in the name of things that we want to continue to do, though, and keep consistent and make the routine and bring it into our lives in a more integral way. So it's not just a little one-off thing necessarily when we have so much Taurus energy in the air. So that's a dichotomy. I don't know. I feel like that's worth mentioning. Very different, but they complement each other very well as well. So Mercury going in here, that was my point. The pacing has changed. The pacing is changing. I want to talk about this Venus-Uranus conjunction. So very similar to the Sun-Uranus conjunction. Oh, it's because I'm already to half of the month. That's why. So we're going to talk about this more next time, but we should talk about it because, like, as of May 14th and 15th, Venus is getting pretty close to Uranus. So I was just talking about the Sun Uranus and freedom and independence and authenticity and needing that room to kind of move around and do their own thing and maybe needing some space during that time, in terms of following their goals or ambitions or just expressing their identity, being in their identity the way that they want to be. When we get Venus, Lord of Relationships, with this planet of independence and freedom and space, sometimes we need space in our relationships for a few days. I notice this a lot for me. Like, or it'll just so happen that our relationships will be interrupted. And this is like the classic, like, oh, I'm not going to see my partner today randomly because his friend needs him to help him do a thing randomly, So it's like there's a little interruption in the relationship, but it's fine. It can be doing newer novel things in the relationship. So this is like the classic, yeah, like spice up the bedroom. Let's do something different. Go into a new restaurant with a friend or a loved one. So that thing of novelty, newness, interruption, disruption, authenticity, freedom, space, all of those might need to be expressed here in mid-May, in our relationships. And now we are bringing in the values thing explicitly. So mid-May, it's like very radically, revolutionarily, like, these are my values. These are the ethics on the table. Here it is. Uncompromising, kind of in that way, which is interesting because you have to compromise to build harmony. There has to be compromise. And I think Uranus can be so uncompromising sometimes. So that'll be maybe something we have to navigate or negotiate with each other is how much compromise is reasonable, or sometimes it's not. And then we leave and then we do other things or we try new things. But sometimes compromise is necessary. Oh, what else about Venus here? Trying new things artistically, new cleaning methods. Venus does love a clean thing. Um, mm, Venus, Uranus. If people need space, give them space. Yeah. The moon just squaring all of this. So, on the 15th, I think we'll be noticing that quite a bit. All of these kind of maybe needing space or breakthrough energy or big exciting things or new things. But if there is a little bit of adjustment needed, a little bit of adjustment time, like maybe we get into a little argument or we get a little irritated for just a moment before we kind of regain our footing. That could happen on May the 15th, but overall, it just looks like a really fun, expressive time. And if you are doing more serious types of expressing out there in the protest lands, again, just make sure with that Mars, Rahu, that you are hydrating, resting, taking care of yourself as much as possible in the meantime when you're doing other things. Wow. So that pretty much brings us to the middle of the month. There were a lot of weird energies. I'm going to be real. There was a few energies in there where, yeah, it just looks like stuff where if it were like a wild animal, I would be approaching it very carefully and quietly and not making direct eye contact. So there's a few days like that this first couple weeks of May. That I think one of the biggest ones, I will say like 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th seem like I'm going to approach with caution. Uh, Very productive energies. Like this whole month, there's so much constructive, generative productiveness that even throughout like the little a little discord, I'm gonna approach cautiously. Like I think it's all in the name of something more constructive. But then like the 14th and the 15th look a little bit more chill. A little bit more like we can have fun and let our hair down with that expressiveness and find ways to really like come into that being authentic, and then that joy of being really thoroughly seen in your like unique weirdness. Like that feels like very possible this month, especially on the 14th and 15th. uh oh, there is a little malefic enclosure. I missed this on the 9th. Malefic enclosure on Thursday the 9th from 5:47 in the morning Central Time to 12 in the morning Friday. So essentially all day on the West on Thursday the 9th, and then midday into the evening around Universal Time. For the global East, this malefic enclosure of the moon is going to be, that's more like on Friday, like morning and afternoon of Friday. So like if you are more like I was just kind of using India Standard Time this time because that was like a gap in my I was trying to do like every like 4 or 5 time zones or something, but uh that would be like if you're in India, malefic enclosure in your morning, so leave early for work, uh or if there's like a meeting to have, don't do it later. Do it not Friday morning, not Friday afternoon. Wait till after that. By Friday, we'll be getting out of that. So that was the only other thing I missed. Earlier in the month, it is a lot of negotiating with Mercury Chiron stuff, the wrapping up of the Mercury retrograde at the beginning of this month. The very ends of the wrapping is up in the Mercury retrograde. And then just a lot of Uranus. There's a lot of Uranus this month. So I think in general, very expressive month. And there's going to be a lot of people wanting to be seen and heard for their true, authentic, most authentic selves. So in that way, and this is where I really love that Jupiter is around. I love that Venus is around. I love that all of that's going into a trine with Pluto. So this kind of big expressiveness that we want to do with Uranus here, or that kind of just being our radically authentic selves with Uranus, it feels like that's supported. It feels like it can have really powerful consequences and in the nature of Jupiter. Trines are Jupiter. So all of these planets are moving into a trine with Pluto. So like these big powerful messages or breakthroughs or expressings of self, in the name of growth, advancement, progress, expansion, Jupiter, truth, justice, Jupiter. Um, I dig it. I dig all of that. But yeah, it's really hyper energetic, and we have to remember to hydrate this month. I never talk about hydrating. This month I'm talking about hydrating. Uh, that's what I have for you. Let me see what the chat has to say. Hello, everyone. Hello, Max. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for joining. Uh, Prismek. Hopefully I said that right. Prismek? Prismek? I don't know. Hello. Welcome. Hello, Carolyn. Hello, Cloxen. Hi, Nikki. Hi, Debbie. Oh, look at all these familiar people. Hello. It's good to see you. Uh, Peace to the universal family. Hugs. Oh, Claxon's moving. Good luck moving. I hope it's good. Yeah, like this is what a great month. Like it's been a delight talking to people about elections and transits about May and June. It has been such a relief because I feel like every time I'm talking to people about timing lately, it's a lot of bad news. It's like, like right now, I'm not so sure. Like if you can just hang in there. And now like people are like, oh yeah, I'm doing this thing in May or June. Like, how's it gonna go? And I'm just like, yes, good. This is the time. This is the time to do it. And if for nothing else, like just thinking about elections and the timing of things, yes, I can try to pick the best timing for things. And then also if I believe in fate, which I do a bit, fate and free will, the clock here is just going to show us kind of when this stuff is going to happen, hell or high water, whether we have anything to do with it or not. So, it's like if things are just starting to go now, like you're doing the move, you're doing the relationship shift, you're doing the thing, you're doing the whatever, any big initiations, any big new beginnings right now, like May and June. Yeah, I think a lot of us are going to be hopefully heading on some journeys in a really with our feet feeling really strong and stable and firm, but with a lot of energy of Mars moving forward. I love that Venus Saturn sextile this month. This just feels like very stabilizing in general. Whatever else is going on in the sky. So there's that. Uh, Good luck with the move. I hope it goes great. 13th is a good day to start summer classes. Let me look. Depends. Yeah, I mean, gal, cardinal energy. Uh, that Mars. Hmm. Yeah, I plead the fifth, but oh yeah, just if you're gonna do anything on the 13th, like just wait for the moon. Just wait for the moon to get past Pluto. Wait for the moon to get past Pluto. And then I love like more of that after, yeah, after we get past this T square with Mercury. I don't like that on the 13th earlier. After that's done, that's when it would be a nicer inception time. But yeah, like all the cardinal energy and the fire of it. Yeah, especially if it's like activity based. Um, yeah, Debbie, I mean, aren't all of ours usually somewhat in a little bit of a way? But yeah, it's like I think, when you're first starting to learn astrology and you learn like what Jupiter and Venus mean, it's like, all right, Joopy Joop, where's that lottery ticket? Where's fixing all my problems? It's not like that at all. But I've seen them so many times make it so it's like, oh, I didn't die though. Oh, I made it through and it didn't become this whole big thing. Or, oh, it's like a near miss. The benefics can give us near miss energy of like, yeah, I died. almost a bad thing happened, but it didn't. Or a bad thing happened, but it could have been worse. And it's always such a tricky thing to talk about the energies in that way when it's so easy for that to come off as dismissive. So I always like to be really careful around that language and kind of looking at like the spectrum of favorability of outcomes in astrology, or the spectrum of, you know, preferable versus unpreferable, favorable versus unfavorable. Yeah, I always have to be careful about that language. Anyway, I digress. Thanks, Nikki. I appreciate it. Yeah, Jupiter and Gemini. We'll talk about it next time. But yeah, I'm pretty much now my focus is going to be very much toward finishing up that PowerPoint. This is the first PowerPoint I have made in a decade. I am very excited. Everyone like pew pew pew, like air horns, pew pew pew. Gemini and Jupiter and Gemini workshop, Jupiter Square Saturn workshop. That's really what it is. So I am just very excited to talk about that, and I think it's going to be very interesting. I am just also very, as I mentioned before, excited that a lot of these things that have been in a square with Pluto are going to be in a trine with Pluto very soon. That usually feels a little bit lighter and more exciting versus the heaviness of an overcoming square from Pluto. Let me think if there's anything else I need to say. I don't think so. I don't think so. I guess this is kind of cool. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Feel free to take off whenever you want. I'm just rambling now. But I got this cool thing recently. I'm pretty frugal. I have my moon applying to Saturn by a square. I have an overcoming square from Saturn on my moon. So usually when people ask me things, or, you know, usually when I ask myself for things like, can we buy this? I'm like, no, we're never buying anything ever again. I always say that, and then I buy stuff. So I bought this, but it is from Roshi Joan Halifax, who was one of my very first introductions to any kind of Buddhism at all. She's more Zen. She's in the Zen tradition, but she has this card deck, this meditative card deck. You can get it on Amazon. I'm not a friend of the show. I just got it and I'm playing with it, but it has 55 meditations to cultivate a courageous heart. And it's called A Moment in Breath. And they go by element. They've got earth ones, water ones, fire ones, air ones, and then space, which is new to me as an element. So I'm excited for those. But yeah, I want to read one. You know, we've got Taurus or a sun right now. We got the sun in Taurus. So let's do an earth one for grounding. That's nice. Do a little meditation. Never do this before. Sometimes I read little quotes, but okay, so this says, sitting comfortably, let your attention rest lightly on your breath and your body. Now sense into your connection with the earth. Invite the stability of the earth into your body, your heart, and your mind. Experience the strength of your connection with the earth. And like, I'm in a chair right now, but I just like pretend like the chair is an extension of my body. And I just like feel like the earth holding me. Like it's a nice feeling, and I recommend it. So that was nice. So yeah, I'm excited. I'll bring these out again next time. We'll keep playing with these. But I like those. Yeah, the sun is in an earth sign, so this is where historically we're supposed to go touch grass. So I suppose I should probably go do that. I don't think there's anything else. www.aligninglightastrology.com is my website. That's where you can go for bookings, and use the discount code Astrology Podcast in conjunction with Chris's referral list. And if you like how I talk about stuff, which I am usually a little bit more off the cuff here, I'm more on the cuff in the consult room, but you can book and you can get 10% off. And if you happen to be, what's my age limit? 50 or older, 55 or older. I also have a forever discount. It's called Thank You 10, and that'll get you a 10% off discount if you are over the age of 50 or 55, something like that. So I've always got 10% off discounts. If you want to get bigger ones, sometimes I mention them in my newsletter, which you can also sign up for on my website, www.aligninglightastrology.com. If you like this video, please hit like, subscribe, hit the like button, and I guess I'll catch you on the 9th. So the next thing that I have is on May 9th, and that is my next question and response session. So I'm going to do a call for questions probably in a few days on Instagram. But if you have any questions too, just bring them live. You can always throw them in the comments section below as well on the Q and R videos. And I usually try to keep up with them there as well. So that's my next thing. That's at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. I'm sorry, 7 p.m. It's 7 p.m. Central Time. Second Thursday of every month here on YouTube, same exact place. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I will see you. And have I scheduled the next one of these? I don't even think I have. Did I? No, I didn't. So stay tuned. Oh, no, I did. Okay. Wednesday the 15th. 11 a.m. Ooh, I set it for early. I'm gonna have to be up earlier that day at the crack of 11 a.m. My forecast for May part 2. That's when it's gonna be. So I'll see you on the 9th, and I'll also see you here on the 15th at 11 a.m. Central Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Wow, that'll be interesting. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, again.